What if your church won't pay for an additional service to get chord charts on the stage screen, but they want them anyway? And what if they often will change the key at the last minute? Is there a way around both of those things? Well, stick around and find out. Presented by Church Tech U, it's the ProPresenter show. On today's show, how to manually add chords in ProPresenter and the best format if there's any chance you're going to change the key in the middle of things. Hi, and welcome again to the ProPresenter show. This is the show where I teach all about ProPresenter. My name's Paul Allen Clifford. And before you get started, if you've tried to get your church to subscribe to an additional service, and it just isn't going to happen, but the musicians really want chord charts, go ahead, tell me about it in the comments below. So this is something that I've actually been thinking about because I just started going to a new church, and of course I pay attention to what software they're using, and they're using ProPresenter. Of course, every church that we visited as we were looking for a new church used ProPresenter. So one thing that I noticed is that they were doing this format for their stage screen. And it got me thinking about maybe that this would be a solution to a problem that I was seeing. So let's head over to the computer and we'll talk exactly about that. So it is the case that so this is a multitrack song right here. And so as a result, if I go here into stage and I not that one. I think it's this one. Hide myself here. If I add I clearly need to clean these out. Multitracks, chords, and lyrics. So I add that, then we can see that when I select that particular stage screen, it shows the chords. Now, I'm kind of giving it away a little bit because you'll see that this is actually numbers, where this one right here is traditional chord symbols. So what if you don't want to pay for this? Well, there is a solution. So here I've got the other song that I got from CCLI. So what I could do is I could right click and edit the slide here and then use the note section down here. So your first thought might be, okay, well, no problem. C, G, D minor, etc. That would work. And, I could actually space these out a little bit and play around with it and then make a stage screen layout so I could go into the editor, edit layouts here, and I could create a new one, blank one, and I could add in a text box using this. By the way, if you're on an older version, there's a big plus button here. You click on the big plus button and select text. Either way. Now, select this box, but over here, don't select chords multitracks if you're not using multitracks. Instead, select link text, and you can go down here and select, let's see, current slide, and then notes, and preserve notes format. And now, let me rename that one to notes chords, just so that it's obvious. Okay, and then we will go back over here And that was number 14 here. If I change that here to the notes chords, yep, so I will need to format this a little bit better so that it's more legible. In fact, let me do that right quick. So right here, select that, hide myself here, go to slide, and okay, there we go. For slide notes, I need to make that much bigger, so let's actually maybe make it like 60. Yeah, that's better. And now I could then also copy these two lines here because it's going to be easier to just show that. And there we go. And I'm going to copy and paste. By the way, those are the wrong chords. I know that. But you can see how we'll just show you basically how that can look. So now I click on it again. And now that works. Except, what if they come in and say, you know how Madison was supposed to lead the song? Well, she's got laryngitis. So Laura Joe's going to step in, but her voice is a little bit different. So instead of the key we were going to do it in, we need to do it in a different key. Well, for a guitarist, that's actually probably not a big deal because what they'll do is they'll just move the capo on the neck and be done. But what do you do if you're not a guitarist? You know, there are problems with that. So instead of doing the chord symbols like this, and I recognize musicians, I am adding some complexity to your life. I'm sorry about that, but I think that this is going to be the solution until and unless you can convince your church to switch to paying for an additional service. And that is, so let's edit this again. And instead of C, G, D minor, let's say that it was C, D. So 1, 2, okay. Something like that. And you saw me counting on my fingers because I am not good at this. I do play the guitar kinda, but I'm just not saying that this is the right way to do it. So I could put that in there, and now when we go back and click on it, it would show up like this. So this is the Nashville numbers numbering system. So instead of this, we would have something like this. And again, I'm not absolutely saying that this is right. You'll have to forgive me. Only iffy as a musician. So, but you could see how that would be the same chord shapes, just you would put a different place for it. So, well, what if I wanted to add in some additional information there? Well, let's do this. If I right click and I edit this slide here, and I add in another text box, and this time I'm going to put this text box down here, and I'm going to say capo 2 key of whatever, C. Again, I'm not saying that this is right. I'm just saying that this is something you could do, and then I could make that 60 as well. And now for this text box, to keep it from showing, I can drag it off of the screen there, and I think autocorrect might have gotten me capo. So I'm not saying that that's right again. I'm only an iffy musician. So, but we can rename this as chords and let's just call it chords. No, let's call it key. Key even makes more sense here. Sorry. So key with the capital K. So if I go back here up to screens and edit layouts, now I could add another one. Okay, and I could put that over here. And since it's got less information here, maybe I just want to put it off to the side. And again, linked text. This time I'm going to do current slide and match element name, which is why I paid attention to what it was called, and call it key. So, and I could switch those, by the way. I could have this be in the notes section and this be in the as an additional text box that's off the edge of the screen. I could also, instead of having it off the edge of the screen, I could also do a visibility thing here under shape. I have the visibility checkbox that would I would actually do that on the original, but that's where I would do that, and basically I would say, when this particular one does not have text, show it. Therefore, it would only show when it did have text, but I would do that on the original. So we could do it that way. So if I click on that again, then notice it says capo 2 key of G or whatever I put down there. So instead of these letters, which I admit are more common, then you could use the Nashville number system. I guess you could also use Roman numerals, something where this information right here you can change real quick. Now, it's not going to be the best and easiest thing in the world because you will need to change that on multiple slides, but it will be much faster than changing on multiple slides and changing all of these here. So that is what I would suggest, is you're basically tricking ProPresenter into displaying the chords. You format this once with the text of the lyrics and wherever the chords go, and then you just update whatever the capo position is, whatever the key is. Just make sure you update that correctly, otherwise things are going to be iffy. But that would solve that problem. So I still think that it's maybe a better solution. It's not super expensive to go with multitracks, but I also recognize that some of you are in situations where it was like pulling teeth to get ProPresenter at all, let alone paying any extra to make your life easier. And so that's why I'm thinking through what is the best way to make your life as easy as possible if you can't do the easiest way to do it. What's a step up from that? And that's what that step up is. Um, so that's how I would do it in ProPresenter. If you like this content, you'd probably like my ProPresenter Quick Start course. So head on over to TDM.fyi/pro quick. Give me your name and email address, and I'll make a login for you for free. Until next time, this is Paul Allen Clifford from TrinityDigitalMedia.com and ChurchTechU.com, reminding you to go out and change eternity.